I'm Carol Bacak-Egbo, historian for Oakland County Parks. Join me now for an episode of History in Our Parks.
How do we know they were here? An Oakland County Park story. The farmers who had the farms that would eventually become our county parks left behind evidence that they were here. They left behind photographs. In some cases, they left behind structures. They left behind artifacts. What about the indigenous people, the Native Americans who came before them? What's the evidence that they were here? In some cases, we know where their long-distance trails were, like the Saginaw Trail, which connected Native American communities in what would become Detroit with those in the Saginaw Valley. If we look at how the trail crossed through Oakland County, we'll notice that 3 Oakland County parks, Waterford Oaks, Holly Oaks, and Groveland Oaks, happen to be right along that trail. The important Grand River Trail, which crossed Michigan. If you look at the Grand River Trail, the southern border of Lion Oaks County Park happens to be right along that trail. Also know that Oakland County was crisscrossed with a network of shorter trails, like this one, right on the northern edge of Independence Oaks. It appears that that trail was connecting that area with a known Native American village that was on the shores of Bald Eagle Lake, just south of Ortonville. Why are trails important evidence? Well, we know that Native Americans on a journey camped along these trails. We also know that sometimes they had sites, important sites like sugar camps along those trails. So proximity to a Native American trail increases the likelihood of a Native presence in a place. But it wasn't just trails that Native Americans used. They also used waterways. And some of the most important waterways happen to flow through our parks. The Clinton River at Independence Oaks, the Shiawassee River at Rose Oaks, Huron River at White Lake Oaks. These rivers provide an important link to Native American history in our parks. We also have archaeological evidence, like that found in this book from 1931. Wilbert Hinsdale, an archaeologist, took all the existing evidence of Native American presence in Michigan and created a series of maps in which he located Native American villages, burial grounds, trails. If we take a section of northern Oakland County from that map and we locate Addison Oaks County Park and Lakeville Lake, which happens to be just to the northeast of the park, we'll notice that there were 2 very important trails right in that area. On the west side of Lakeville Lake was a Native American burial ground, and on the south shore, a Native American village, which puts Addison Oaks right in an area with significant Native American history. In addition, Peter Shoemaker, who had a farm on the east side of Addison Oaks on the road going to Lakeville Lake, was said, according to family records, to have a large collection of arrowheads that he kept in a box. Many family histories in Oakland County include a reference to a box of arrowheads. Technically, a better term is projectile points, because they weren't all arrowheads. Some were knife points, some were spear points. How were farmers finding them? It seems it was most often when they were plowing, especially before tractors were in common use. Most of these collections have disappeared, and we don't know much about them. But we do know about one collection located just south of White Lake Oaks. It was the Charles Corpet collection. On his farm, he found numerous projectile points, including these fluted points, estimated to be 10,000 years old. A quartz spear point, estimated to be 5,000 years old. But it's not just projectile points that have been found. Beginning in 1940, Maria Arnold Barrett's family owned what now is Independence Oaks North. And when interviewed, she said, "My dad found a lot of arrowheads and a little stone bowl." That stone bowl was likely part of a mortar and pestle set used for grinding. Stone tools like that little bowl and this barbed axe, which was found in Waterford Township, not far from Waterford Oaks, can be difficult to identify because they look a lot like rocks. For example, is this a rock or a stone tool? Stone tool. It was part of a prehistoric hoe. And what about this one? Rock or a stone tool? This was just a rock. So how do we know they were here? We know the trails that they traveled on. And we know that many of our parks were located right along those trails. The waterways they used, and those waterways still flow through our parks. And we know of some of the artifacts that they left behind. All of which take the history of our parks back hundreds and hundreds of years.